We're really delighted to have Steve Pimlett, who is the Chief Data Officer from the Very Group, who will be sharing his own story about the incredible success and revolutionary breakthroughs that the Very Group is experiencing by leveraging data and by really looking at modern technologies, including things like AI. So I'll talk about this topic for a few moments and get it over to Steve, and then we'll have some conversation. I may go a little bit quick, but please make sure if you have any follow-up that you want to reach out to me, we'll be giving you contact information at the end. This is a critical moment, but a very exciting moment in the retail industry, because this is the inflection of three important big trends. Two of them, as AWS partners and friends, you know well, which is the massive increase in compute capability that the cloud offers, as well as the explosion, the fire hose of data, structured, unstructured data from an incredibly infinite number of sources. These two ongoing trends that we've known for a number of years are now intersecting with a new one, which is the sophistication of models, including LLMs, leading to things like generative AI. This is a very exciting time. As you're probably aware, Amazon has always been a leader as it relates to AI and retail. We sell literally thousands of products every minute, packages flying around everywhere. And don't forget about Alexa, the language models used in Alexa. You know, I once heard someone say that you don't hear with your ears, you hear with your brain. Alexa is really an application, an early application of advanced AI. And it's really the kind of thing that we've focused on over the last few years. So if you think about the cascade and the evolution of AI, we started off with the notions of artificial intelligence and sort of the Turing test type of things, but ultimately we got to machine learning, which focused on the search for patterns, something very familiar for anyone who's had to deal with thousands and thousands of iterations of consumers every minute, as all of you do. About a decade ago, Amazon started really getting into what we call deep learning, which is a further subset of ML, which uses layered neural networks, and our accuracy just went off the charts. But the next horizon, the next frontier, is actually generative AI, and we're going to talk a bit about this, which is the idea that we use these large models against those giant volumes of data to really change the world with what we call foundational models. There's a whole bunch of use cases, and this is like, just scratching the surface. But just remember that anything that requires customer insight, operational insight, large amounts of data, there's a wide variety of generative AI use cases that you can really apply. And in this short period, we're going to talk about a few use cases Steve Scott that the Very Group has been experimenting with. But just rest assured that this is the beginning of the application of Gen AI really pervasively across retail. For those of you who have not experienced our Just Walk Out technology, the Amazon contactless technology that allows you to basically take something and just walk out. There happens to be one at the Las Vegas airport, at the Hudson Nonstop. As you're boarding your plane, please try it. It's an incredible experience. And what we'll find is that these kinds of experiences will draw us to things like generative AI, because our customers will demand these kind of experiences. Autonomous retail, I mean, you think it's about computer vision and sensors and all this stuff, but really those are just inputs into a really sophisticated AI-based sort of model that allows us to deal with the complexity of people picking up items from all over the store, maybe putting them back, and getting the right price and the right item count. If you go over to that Hudson's Nonstop, you'll find that Amazon One is there. That's the palm reader, the biometric palm reader, that allows you to actually have the entire checkout experience without even reaching for your wallet. Customers love this experience. And I think this is a key takeaway, that it's not going to be a bright, shiny object that gets you to Gen AI and other advanced technologies. It's going to be your customers who are going to demand that you use these kind of technologies to really enrich their shopping experience. We're using a lot of video, for example. And people have used video in stores for as long as there's been video. The difference is the application of intelligence. What can I learn from this video? Can I learn dwell times or paths to purchase? Can I understand what kind of shopper marketing tools worked? Or when an associate talked to a consumer, what happened? Again, the inputs of video have been here forever, but the intelligence to be able to make sense of it is what's changing now. How can you use this kind of information? Well, please, join us, in the various places you can meet AWS Retail, or if you happen to be in New York in January for the National Retail Federation show, we can actually share with you dashboards and kits that allow you to use AWS solutions AWS services to actually build your own behavioral data and analytics. And also we have a wide variety of partners. So at the end of the day, we are a very technical group at reInvent, but we also focus on the fact that it all has to lead to great business outcomes. That's why we're here, is to really make our businesses grow, but more fundamentally to serve our customers better. And some of the things that you can do better with these technologies, things like omni-channel personalization to actually acquire and retain customers, better engagement, being proactive, thinking what that next best activity would be to really delight your customer. And then on the operational side, everyone knows that retail is rife with inefficiency, and where are the places that we can improve store operations and improve supply chain. And finally, this brave new world of discoverability. We've been so used to search being what it is for the last 20, 25 years. But as you get to these generative AI models, for example, that start to really understand and can search and delve with a much richer experience, consumers will ask us for that. And so you want to be ready. Personalization is a very specific area that we focus at Amazon a lot. The system itself can be large and costly. We've spent a lot on it in Amazon Retail. But going forward with generative AI, the opportunity is here for you to actually leverage what amounts to be a partner, an intellectually capable partner that happens to be a computer, to help you build these new solutions. And I think that when Steve and I have a chance to talk, we'll talk about how you can actually do that. Of course, as you know, personalization is very near and dear to Amazon. The recommendation engine was one of the most important first applications of AI that we had at Amazon. We continue to invest in it, and we recommend that our partners and customers do the same, because it's really about where customers want us to go. They want a market of one. They want us to know them intimately, to predict the next best activity, and to really get to a world where we're anticipating their asks. And there's no way to do this without personalization. So at AWS Retail, we engage with thousands of retailers and brands worldwide, some of the largest brands in the world. And we've been compiling a list of those questions about use cases that our customers have been asking about. The homepage experience in digital is the entry point to their experience, the customer's experience with you. So that's getting a lot of attention. Some of the obvious things like basket size and order value and cross-sell and upsell, these are things that the business needs to focus on. The other points that are on this chart, you may say, well, we do this every day, so why are we calling it out? The key thing is at Amazon, if you're here, you've heard this phrase before, we always work backwards from the outcome we're trying to get to. And this is the opportunity, I think, for us to discuss what are the outcomes, and for you to tell us where should Amazon and AWS invest in technologies and capabilities to help you better achieve outcomes like this. We talked about the sort of evolution of forecasting, and we've lived this. We like to say AWS was born in retail and built for retailers, and we have the scars to prove it, because there was a time in a garage in Jeff Bezos' house when we were doing this stuff on spreadsheets. The investment in data and ultimately artificial intelligence, deep learning, and at the end in generative AI has been very critical, foundational to our success. So we have a couple of key platforms or solutions that services that you should be aware of. Forecast, if you haven't seen it, gives the ability to take models and capabilities for time series forecasting for a wide variety of use cases without having to have an army of data scientists. Similarly, SageMaker, which is our ability, SageMaker Canvas, which is our ability to leverage our underlying foundational models in a way that doesn't require deep data science, we really recommend you take a look at. So with that, I do want to introduce Steve. For those of you who aren't aware, Very Group is one of the leading commerce players in Europe, based in the UK. They've been a great AWS partner for many years, and Steve's spoken at our events before. I really want to give him the time to share with you their success, and then we'll have a few moments to chat after. So with that, let me turn over to Steve from the Very Group.
Thanks, Ravi. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Steve Pimlett. I'm Chief Data Officer at the Very Group, and the lights are bright, but I was going to show of hands, anybody from the UK in? We've got a few people in. So, well, before I explain the Very Group, I'm just going to tell you a few things about myself. My favorite book, something called Super Crunchers, written in 2007, all about how data was going to change the world. My favorite film, Moneyball. Yeah, how data changed baseball forever. Not just because of Brad Pitt. My wife does love Brad Pitt, though. My favorite pastime is actually gambling, but not in Vegas, on a sports book called Betfair in the UK. So very much the mathematics of gambling really interests me. And I even met my wife on Match.com. So I'm all about being data-driven. In my life and in work. So the Very Group was really a unique opportunity to take my passion about data and apply it in business. So who are the Very Group? Well, today, we are the largest pure-play online digital retailer in the UK. So we offer and we sell everything other than grocery. So all your leading brands, so 2,000 brands, from electrics, fashion, sports, beauty, home, garden, furniture. Everything we stock and we sell it purely online as a pure digital player. We also couple that with really convenient ways to pay, so we call that Very Pay. Allowing our customers to spread the cost, to buy now, pay later, to take three, and to really manage that as a way of conveniently paying for all the items that they'll, pay through the Very websites. But that's not where we started. So we've got a very long history. So the Very Group actually dates back to 1896. So it was one of the first catalogs in Europe, and it was called K's & Co. And if you think of really back to that time, it was a printed catalog that was sent out once a year, maybe seasonal as we got into the 1900s. But it was a really flat, static assortment. And you really only communicated with the customer and the consumer once a year. So static consumers, static communication, and sort of one size fits all. So that was back in 1896. Let's fast forward to Very today, but actually what happened over the 100 plus years was really transformation. So in about 1930, K's became Littlewoods, and anybody that lived in the UK, probably in the 90s, will have known the Littlewoods catalogue, which was one of the biggest in the UK. It also became a stores business, so very much in many major high streets in the UK, there was a Littlewoods or an Index where people would go and order in-store and collect in-store. And Very actually is the new proposition, but it was about 2009, and now all the stores are gone. Littlewoods still exists as an online brand, but everything is consolidated into the online proposition called Very. So very.co.uk and very.ie for our Irish business. So let's fast forward to today and think about how dynamic our customer base is compared to back in 1896. So the customer base of today is really diverse. They're always on. Our assortment is now hundreds of thousands of products. They, unbelievably, the stat, and actually we're in our peak period at the moment, almost 90% of all sales are done through a mobile, be it mobile web or our native mobile app. I still can't believe that as a number. So, you think of how many consumers in the UK, is about 5 million of them, using the mobile and apps every day. They're time poor, lots of juggling and really interfacing with us as a brand via that mobile device. So I guess to make sure we give them an amazing experience, it's really about offering them ease, so the ability to find the products that they want, choice, so hundreds of thousands of brands, you've got to have a great search for that, and the ability to be able to pay really easily and conveniently all on a mobile device, and of course get it distributed. So we're really proud that you can place an order on 10 p.m. and have it delivered next day. So really, you think of the dynamic nature of our business now. It's unparalleled in terms of the consumer expectations on that small device. Really want a great retail experience. So how do we think about it and frame it? So we very much know that in order to compete, we say we want to understand the shopper's DNA. Because we know we really need to understand them to make everything more relevant, more timely, and more personalized. And I'm going to bring that to life for you in a second, and really how we think about that through the power of data and analytics. So a few more facts and stats so you can see the playground of data that we've got to leverage. So we get a couple of million daily visits to our website and mobile apps. We've got about 4.5 million active paying customers. They can pay by cash or they can pay through the very credit facility. We've got every digital media touch point imaginable, off-site media, emails, SMS, push notifications. We've got a call center where we'll both leverage chatbot capability and also be speaking to the customers. In terms of our credit offering, we're actually, outside of the leading banks in the UK, one of the biggest lenders in the UK. So we're a bank as well, so we're fully regulated, FCA compliant. And we've got a full supply chain, so we deliver almost 50 million products annually through a fully automated warehouse and supply chain from all over the world. So we take that data and we really think about how do we think about the customer with all those touch points, bring it together and enable us to really innovate around the consumer based upon what we know about them, their DNA, if you will. So in order to leverage that, we very much leverage our data strategy, which is actually 4 pillars, 3 of which are on the screen. So data, insight, action is how we really frame the opportunity to leverage that amazing data asset, push it through our descriptive and predictive analytics engines, and really drive action across a multitude of touch points and business lines within the very group. So it's all about being customer-centric. It's all about being relevant, timely, and personalized. And there's some really good groupings there for how we think about our action systems and the point where we make decisions that can influence and support the customer. So the first place is marketing and digital customer experience. So I've already said, from a marketing perspective, to attract brand new customers and keep our current customers engaged, you have to be present on all the necessary channels. So you've got to be in TV, press, radio, digital touch points, Facebook, and all the various digital media spaces, Google's, everywhere. You have to make sure that you're showing up where the customer wants you, and compete in terms of every Google search. I want a new TV, I want a Dyson, I want a new Apple pad, whatever it may be, we have to show up in the right place. So we very much use our data and insight for customer-centric marketing. We also leverage our data and insight for what we call a digital customer experience. So those millions of visits every single day to our websites, we take our customer understanding and really, drive relevance through better search, through better recommendations, through better product placement. Next on the list in terms of action systems is what we call customer-centric decisioning. So how do we make sure we support our customers through checking and offering them credit, reducing fraud and stopping bad actors, right through to retail, things like demand forecasting, price elasticities, promotional effectiveness. So we very much, again, take our data and insight and power those action systems. And last but not least, all things that are really virtual assistants, customer-facing bots, and really offering, true service to the customer. We get a lot of questions about financials. We get a lot of questions about delivery, returns. So we really need to have, a great customer service, and we pride ourselves on really understanding Net Promoter Score and driving that. So let's talk more about how we're structured to leverage data and insight, and then I'm going to talk about the technology that underpins it. So in terms of our business model, so as a chief data officer, the operating model is very much a hub and spoke model. The hubs are centers of excellence that master their skills and master their crafts, and also really think about the platforms that we're going to innovate with. And the spokes are really the business units, the performance unit, the vertical businesses. So in terms of hubs, I operate 5 different hubs. So I've got a data platforming and engineering capability, very much, hugely technical. Think about how we scale our infrastructure, how we scale our warehouses, our lake houses, and really think about that, the data foundations. We've got BI and analytics, where we're thinking about, descriptive analytics, dashboarding, and I have analysts embedded across the organization to support them with both ad hoc and really advanced analytics. I also have what we call the customer forensics team, where we've brought together both quant and qual understanding of our customer, single customer view, attitudinal research, and everything we know about the customer in a single hub. We've got a data science team, which is now AI, ML, deep learning, that really think about how we're going to use, real leading edge technologies and approaches to solve business problems. And last but not least, I also run data governance and operations, thinking about privacy, security, quality, governance, risk, ethics. So that's my hubs. And in terms of the spokes, those are the vertical business units that we offer are really platforms, services, and products in support of that business unit. So I already covered some examples. So let's help marketing with econometrics so they know how to spend their next marketing dollar. Let's help retail with product price promotion. Let's help our financial services with fraud, credit checking. Let's help finance with better forecasting and cost management. So we take our hubs, we really partner with the businesses, and we think of ourselves as really like an internal agency deploying capability, platforms, products, and services to allow the business units to innovate and scale with data and analytics. So let's bring that to life further and really frame it around the customer. So like many B2C businesses, we're very customer-centric. We really want to think about the customer across the entire life cycle. So these are just a few examples, with every bubble really being some form of data and analytics capability that we've deployed. So, how do we reach our customers through to, acquire them, landing them on the website, converting them into a buying customer, engaging them through CRM, keeping them active, understanding churn, and hopefully keeping as many of them in that loyal funnel as we can. So just a few examples of very basic things but drive tremendous value. So we've got one on there which will be a data process, so a price drop. So we know how many people visited the website yesterday, how many of them were looking at this fantastic shirt, that nobody actually wanted to buy, so we discounted it the day after. We know that as a price drop, and we send an email out that's really triggered because we know who's shopping the look, and we can do a very, very simple data process that drives value for the business and the customer. So that's a great example. We might have a statistical modeling capability such as churn prediction. So what are our customers doing? How long are they going to stay? Have they been engaged? When's the last time they engaged with our communication, our website? When's the last time they logged in? And try to predict when somebody might maybe looking to lapse, so we can hopefully give them an offer, give them a better service, and keep them and reactivate them within the base. So that might be a good example. And then more and more, we're moving into more machine learning and deep learning algorithms. So email recommendations, for any retailer offering, next best product, next best action via your, many channels such as email. So we've got a good example there. What I'm actually going to do is double click and zoom in on demand forecasting. So that's just one of the bubbles to drill down. And the next 2 or 3 slides are definitely my Vegas show slides, so get ready to be wowed. I'm just going to try to really bring to life forecasting. So if you think of Very being this multi-category retailer, we have at any one time hundreds of thousands of SKUs, so stocking keeping units. We've got, I've already mentioned, 2,000 brands. We offer every product imaginable that you can purchase for your house, your pets, your kids, your clothes, your makeup, your furniture, TVs, anything with a plug. So a huge assortment and a huge range. And we've got 4 million customers. So one of the biggest challenges we've got as a company is really understanding the demand for every individual unit, color, fit, and size, and being able to buy the right stock for our customers, so forecasting that demand. So how do we do it? So if you think of really each branch on here being something that we've got to predict, I'm going to bring it to life with just an example on here that was watches. So we've got many brands. This one is Calvin Klein watches, and we've got different timepieces here. So each stocking keeping unit, we need to know how many to purchase, what color, what strap, what face, etc. And that's one product within our 170, 200,000 product lines. So what we did was very much started to think about a forecasting engine. So using many of the technologies Ravi mentioned before. So AWS offer a forecast service, which is really good for predicting and leveraging that at maybe a category level or a range level. And Amazon SageMaker, we can build our own models and do a champion challenger and really predict every line. So a few of the facts and stats that we've used, and we're on a continuous journey really to harness machine learning technologies and techniques. So we have got about 90 buyers or end users that really are the ones that we're trying to support with a recommendation of how much stock to buy and or replenish. So we run twice weekly a brand new forecast for every individual SKU and product that rolls up into a category forecast. We really look at key metrics such as the model accuracy, WAPE, the availability, how much we're going to put in front of how much we've got in stock. And also, one of the big things we think about is actually the end user adoption, i.e. the 90 people, do they understand the model? Is it explainable? Are they going to use it when it comes to pressing the buy button, or are they going to override it and trust their gut? We also make sure that we're leveraging more and more data sources. So we're looking at demand, we're looking at stock, we're looking at marketing spend, we're looking at weather data, we're looking at seasonality, we're looking at different curves based upon the category type, we're looking at market intelligence, we're looking at competitor information to really think about the data sources that can help us be sharper and more accurate and really get a competitive advantage. If we get it right, that means for our customers, we're going to be in stock. It's going to be on the shelf. So there's nothing worse than going to a retailer, searching for a product, and it's saying out of stock. So if we get it right, that's what we get. So we get, customer really relevance, timeliness, and a great experience for them. If we get it wrong, we've got a couple of problems. Problem number one is it wasn't in stock. In that example. Problem number two is actually we might have bought too much stock. So that becomes a real big cash problem for any business that's bought too much stock and now you can't sell it. So, it's a fine line to make sure you've got that accuracy and really, think about being customer-centric, but understanding, cash flow and how you're going to run your business against that scale. And if you think about it, we've got, 230,000 SKUs that we're trying to match against 4.5 million customers and make sure we're making the right prediction. We can get an amazing customer experience, great net promoter score, and really a business model that drives, great revenues and great margin. So that's the challenge, and we're making great strides on that. How did we do it? So we very much partnered with AWS. So we actually set ourselves a pilot initially. So we very much used the hub and spoke model. So we took my hub teams, so a cross-functional team of engineers, of analysts, and data science from my hub. So that's the DNA team. We partnered with the retail spoke. We brought them into the project, so the buyers, the merchandisers, and the planners. And we brought AWS in with their, at the time, forecast experience, SageMaker experience, and we co-created a pilot from end to end over a 12-week period with the ambition to show the business how much more accurate we could be with our predictions, an individual product line. Not only did we want to prove that, we want to prove the ability to tailor it and tune it and for it to get better. So that was another dynamic of the project. What did we move from? We moved from some sophistication because we had some statistical modeling, but it wasn't machine learning, so a bit of R and some time series analysis. And now we've moved much more forward into a lot more algorithms and a champion challenger environment as well, where we're able, for a given category or a given range or actually a given product, to use different models on different behaviors and deploy them into the environment to get ever optimized forecasts of demand. Where does that show up? It shows up for those 90 buyers in a replenishment app where ultimately they're making the buy decision to order the stock from our suppliers. More and more we're sharing our forecasts with our suppliers, those brands, so they can understand the performance on Very and how to interrelate with supply chain timing and sharing more and more information. So a huge success end to end and very much grounded in that data, insight, and action framework, and very much grounded in really leveraging the capability within Amazon across AWS Forecast and AWS SageMaker, where we build our own. It doesn't stop there because we're always looking to improve the accuracy. So again, anyone that works in retail, will know new products without any history. So if you're in fast fashion, that's really difficult. So if you've never sold the product before, how are you going to forecast demand? So that's problem one. What about really seasonal product ranges and shapes? What about intermittent demand? What about erratic and noisy? There's so many different problems to solve, especially across different categories. So, swimwear, seasonal Christmas sales versus a pair of jeans that you're going to sell all year. So, lots of different dynamics that we can engineer into our forecasting to improve the accuracy, to really get better customer and business outcome. In terms of has it worked? Well, it has. So the Very Group has seen growth in their sales in a really tough market and an increase in market share. We've also reduced our operating costs as we better leverage and better stock and better supply chain excellence. Probably we're most proud of our Net Promoter Score, which is getting better year on year, not just because of this one example, but we also are looking at prices and price elasticities. We're looking at promotional effectiveness and which promotion to offer which offer. We're looking at delivery charges, and we're looking at loyalty programs we really double down on understanding the customer, driving Net Promoter Score, and leverage the understanding through our data insight and action framework. And finally, I haven't talked much about the team. So my team, we branded ourselves DNA. So year on year, we do a survey, an engagement survey. And year on year, my team say they're really engaged at Very. Why? Well, we're really working on advanced problems. So it's great being a technical team to be able to get your hands on new technologies. But very much, I do believe the hub and spoke model where we co-create with the business. And in this example with AWS, when we're all engaged, working on the same problem, common goals, common outcomes, and really innovating and learning as we go, failing fast, and trialing has been a big part of that engagement score. And also our innovation as a team is up. And anybody that lives in the UK might have heard of Data IQ, which is one of the biggest data networks in the UK. And we were shortlisted for 6 awards in the last year for a lot of the work that we're doing, not just in the topic of today, which was really advanced analytics, but what we're doing with our descriptive analytics, what we're doing with our lakehouse technologies, how we are bringing self-serve to the whole company, how we're thinking about data products, how we're thinking about ESG. So many different problems that we could solve with data and analytics in a retail company. So it's really exciting. Which leads on to really look into the future. So we very much are a customer-centric organization, really looking to help UK families get more out of life, playing a bigger role in that, and also thinking about our assortment, our range, our offer, and how we can support the families, especially when there's challenges in terms of everybody's got petrol prices going up, rental going up. How can we support the customer through that? We really think there's an opportunity, as Ravi's slide showed, to really think about how we scale AI and the use cases across the whole organization. And we've set ourselves a target of being one of the leading AI retailers in the UK. To leverage that technology, but framed in our business and business purpose, to delight customers and really offer more relevant, timely experiences, and empower our colleagues, to have a great job supporting those customers. So as we think about the future, we've actually this week just announced a partnership, again, that we're doing with AWS. So we've launched an incubator. So really where we're starting to take our most advanced, next gen, so Gen AI, deep learning use cases. And again, we've done the same thing. We've partnered with AWS, and we're starting to seed those ideas. So the IDC have just done a really great analyst report on our DNA framework and some of the other use cases that we are leveraging a lot of AWS technology, especially as we think about Gen AI use cases. So I think I'm going to invite Ravi back up on the stage, and we're going to probably have a little bit of chat about, some of the newer use cases. So thank you very much.
Well, that's really fascinating, Steve. By the way, please do take a picture of the code there, and you can get a download of that IDC study that takes a look at the DNA organization that Steve has built. As you think about it, you've made a few observations. I think when we think about our audience, we're primarily data-focused people, but we serve internal customers. And there's a lot of culture here that we have to deal with, right? You mentioned marketers and merchants, can use this data to make more accurate decisions, but they tend not to necessarily be as data-centric and maybe think of themselves more as artists rather than scientists. As a CDO, how do you advise this group in terms of bringing those worlds together and making it easier for people who aren't necessarily, deep in data as you are, to sort of use it in a way that is not as threatening, perhaps, or maybe allows them to access it directly?
Yeah, it's a real challenge, actually. One of the biggest problems we have had, and we continue to have, is cultural change, adoption. So what have we done to combat that? Co-creation is a big part of it. So bringing a cross-functional team together from inception. So using the forecasting example, that was AWS, DNA, and the business at a kickoff meeting, incepting what does success look like, common goals, common themes. So get, that business user, that end user who's going to adopt it involved early. So that's technique number one. Technique number two is really like a translator resource. So now you can have, amazing data scientists who are also brilliant at maybe holding an audience, being able to communicate, but you can also get ones that aren't. So we think about the translation role, which our analysts actually are playing more and more, because they, are already embedded in the spoke. So we'll have a retail analyst. There's already, good at data, SQL background probably, analytics, but really understands the commercial outcomes of that business, and everybody will know them in that business unit. So they become a translation layer for the target users. And the other one is start small. So we start small. So we think about demand forecasting. We started in a subcategory, one area. And when we started to have better forecasting for that one area, we sort of promoted Mary, who ran that area. Look how good Mary is. Promoted Mary as a big influence on that, and got adoption through envy, really. When how is Mary so good at a job? Well, actually, she's partnered and leaned into the program. So, 3 good techniques to sort of support that adoption.
Yeah, I love that idea of rewarding, bringing those teams together. And when we think about your teams, and how do we keep people excited about working on new ideas, your incubation approach is great because Gen AI is new and we're still all learning. But there must be a lot of demand from the teams to participate, right? How do you keep people excited and engaged around these new technologies and giving them access when it's so new?
Yeah. So again, a hub and spoke model helps. So what we do is we very much think about skilling up our hubs. So we've got one at the moment that we've partnered with you on, which is, let's think about how we can use Gen AI capability for things like product descriptions. So we've partnered again with AWS. We've put our data science and data engineer teams on a 45-day Bedrock accelerator. Let them play with it a little bit on a Friday afternoon, just so they can get up to speed with the technology. So they've got enough skills to get going. And then we've brought the business in. So we brought the copyright team who write the copy for many of our product descriptions, and again, are starting to co-create. So same model, but we've upskilled the team with some training material. And now again, we've got that, a three-pronged approach. So we've got the AWS experts working with us, the DNA team skilling up, and the business co-creating. And that's already a fascinating use case. So to give you an example of what it is under the bonnet, we've got 170,000 products. Many of those products, if you check very.co.uk out today, won't have a full description.
Right.
Because just the supply chain, we're getting the data. There's only so many copywriters that can produce, so we do our key items. So there might be anything from 30-40% that hasn't got a really rich full description.
Yeah.
So a great use case. So we've taken an approach where, for a subset of our, it was women's dresses in this example, we're going to use Bedrock with a text generation and an image to text generation, where we can take the short description to create a full description, but really fantastically take the product image, because to get on the website you need an image, so every product has an image, and we can generate a full content-rich page based upon the image that we've already got live on our site. So
that's such a great use case. When we think about product descriptions and images, we should realize that this is the heart of searchability, right? If you don't have that input into the old phrase, garbage in, garbage out, what if you don't even have garbage, right? So when you have 30% of items that have short or no descriptions, and you can move to actually having rich descriptions that now become searchable and discoverable and matchable through personalization, it really makes a big difference, right?
Yeah, definitely. And of course, we're a pure play digital retailer, so SEO plays a big part in our search optimization. So having a full feature-rich page that can be understood and scrollable and scrapable is a big part of our digital strategy. So another win.
If a tree fell in the forest, nobody there to hear it. If an item is in your inventory but nobody can find it, it may as well not even be there, right? So, as you can well imagine, at Amazon, being a digital retailer, we think about these things all the time. We make a big investment in products, and what if people can't find them? So using Bedrock and Gen AI for product descriptions seems like a really, really great place to start. But it is just the beginning, isn't it? Where are you seeing some of the use cases that, look interesting as you're looking into 2024 and beyond? What are the kind of areas that kind of have your wheels turning?
Yeah, so well, I mentioned before that we've got a call center with agents supporting customers from everything from the financial services to delivery to returns processes. So we see obviously a big opportunity to leverage a better customer-facing chat for capability, and also better knowledge base information for our agents. So advancement in that space, I'm sure is going to be a big step change for us. We also think when it comes to search, but let me call it conversational retail. So going past search onto, I think I'm going to a wedding this weekend with my two kids, and I want an outfit or conversational retail, and how that starts to sit on top of your data assets is really interesting. And then really a big one, when it was great to look at Amazon Q this morning, is how do we empower our colleagues? So understanding every category wants to self-serve some information. So how do we take conversational BI to empower many of our spokes to make better decisions? How do we I've got 150 people in my team, many of them generating code, so put Code Whisperer on the top of that to get better performance from a team. So there's a huge performance, productivity, and in sort of colleague empowerment
Yeah.
play. So
Yeah.
there's probably
It's interesting how
3
that works.
topics.
When people first heard about, Gen AI and Code Whisperer and ways of actually accelerating productivity of developers, the first knee-jerk thought was, will developers like this? Because it's like, oh, well, is this doing my job? But it turns out that it liberates them to do really high-value, interesting work, and they can actually use this as a way to get to scale, which is great.
Yeah,
But I wanted to ask you about conversational commerce, because I think that's a really interesting area. Obviously, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and so she's exactly at the age that Alexa started about the same time that she was starting to sort of talk. And now, that's the only way she thinks about it, right?
Yeah.
So as a digital player, where do you see voice and interaction that way going? And how does Gen AI start really lending itself to that intimacy?
Yeah, well, I think I said before about if 90% of our sales are on a mobile device,
right.
there's, you're going to hands-free in car, you can sort of see,
Right.
so many different channels to explore.
Yeah.
And that exploration, we see voice playing a big role as we move forward.
Yeah.
We also see, again, new propositions.
Yeah.
So leveraging augmented reality, leveraging lots of front-end capability
Right.
as well. So I think it's just different channels and different propositions calling your APIs is how it
and bringing it together.
Bringing it together, yeah.
Yeah. The thing about voice, too, is that it is both the source of information about your customer. They're talking to you, but it's also the target of your response. Because it's not a monologue, it's a dialogue.
Yeah.
So it's really this opportunity, isn't it, to
Yeah.
get much more intimate and much more sticky with our customer relationships.
Yeah, and if we think again back to being customer-centric,
Yeah.
relevance, timely, personalized,
Yeah.
it fits very much that mantra.
It's funny, though, because when we talk to your peers in the industry, frequently they'll fixate on the sort of natural language processing. It's like, well, that's been around for a while. But it's like what I said earlier, you don't really hear with your ears, you hear with your brain, right? It's the comprehension that matters, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
That 90% mobile thing really strikes me, though, because, boy, that's a fire hose of new data that we never had, right? Things like location and all sorts of things. But I like to say sometimes security is where innovation can go to die.
Yeah.
What kind of implications does this new fire hose of data married with new processing capabilities like Gen AI, how do you think as a CDO about protecting and being a good steward of customer information in this new
great question.
world?
I think I talked about data, insight, action as our 3 value creation pillars. We've got a 4th, which we call trust. So our trust pillar is very much, thinking about privacy, thinking about security, risk, ethics, compliance, governance.
Yeah.
So I've got in the same way of hub and spoke, I've got a hub team that obsess about that.
Right.
So and support the business. So we roll out data stewardship models, data cataloging.
Right.
We manage, obviously, GDPR compliance,
Obviously.
EU cookie directives, being a digital retailer, so consent management. That's all wrapped into everything we do.
Right.
I've talked a lot today about value creation, but data, that's called data as an asset. Data as a risk and a liability is really that trust pillar. So and designing it in from the target really, and a big part of it is framing it in the customer again. So keeping our customers' data safe.
Right.
Making sure it's secure and making sure we treat it with the respect that you would want your own data to be treated and the use cases that we're going to leverage it for.
Yeah, I think that's great. For many years we thought about this area as being about compliance and about, being Eeyore and saying, no, you can't do that. But now it's really about, holding that trust, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, we're also as good as a bank because we're FCA compliant.
Right.
So we've got that whole side of our business and, consumer duty. And so, it's a big part. I can come back next year and present that if you want, Ravi.
Oh, please do. Please do. I was curious about when you think about the various different ways that you're going to unify channels, right? And I don't mean channels because I know you're primarily digital, but channels of information, whether it be customer behavior or past history, information that you may have had before. And I'd like to actually ask you about demand forecasting for a moment. You made an observation that sometimes you have to act in the absence of a historical record. What advice do you give, especially with the emergence of new technologies like Gen AI or deep learning? Is it possible to do more accurate predictions in the absence of historical data?
Yeah, it probably then comes back to classification of your products and how you are engineering your models to think about different features. So actually, the trend of the product itself can be a feature for your model to be built on. So and you can also think about complementary products. You can think about products that have got similar traits, that have got history.
Right.
You can also think about that category that's got a certain shape and a certain history. So there's definitely lots of techniques that some of the more deep learning models allow you to leverage to get predictions without history. We're definitely leveraging that.
Yeah, it used to be that we were really reliant on really having a strong taxonomy and knowing what things look like other things. But now with machine learning, right, the models themselves can detect counterintuitive patterns between things and say this is like that in a way that we may not have been able to do before, right? So it's interesting that we worry about the black box, but to some extent the machine can actually tell us something we wouldn't have seen with our own eyes.
Definitely,
yeah. So as you're thinking about the journey that you've gone on, and the IDC report is a great sort of benchmark that Very Group's kind of out, ahead of most of your peer group, but nobody gets it perfect, right? What are the couple of gotchas or things that if you could go back and roll back a little bit, you might have done a little bit differently a year ago, or as you were designing the DNA framework? What are the lessons learned that you might share with our group?
Don't strive for perfection from the get-go. So really, agile. Really, release fast, fail fast. Get feedback loops. So we probably originally, very early in some of our advanced approaches, would let the data scientist probably get a bit too intellectual with it. Probably want perfection and trying to get the forecast accuracy really high before they'll show it and share it.
Right.
Then they did share it, they couldn't explain it, and we were rolling it back to something simpler anyway. That's an interesting one. But release early, pilot early, small to start with, but design with scale. Otherwise you'll end up in a POC only environment. So those are the two things, release fast, but design with scale in mind, which if you choose the right platform, you'll be able to do.
Again, a bit of a cultural thing too, because a lot of times we reward people for not screwing up. And now we're sort of saying, don't worry, warts and all, we want to see what the possible is, so get it out there fast and let us see it, right?
Yeah, well, if you're going to create value, if you've got the best model in the world but no one's using it, and you've got one regression analysis that improves the value by 0.1%, and someone's using it, then there's only one that creates value.
Right, and the best way to show people is practically. I've got a person on my team that is so excited by using, some of the foundational models that he's just churning out a whole bunch of demos just to show people in like 10% of the time that we used to take, just to show it, the practicality of it. Yeah, well, that's really great. We're getting close on time. Let me just ask you one last sort of summing up question. As you think about, sort of the practical implications of the confluence of these three major trends: massive computing, virtually at no cost, incredible new disparate sources of data, and now these language models. Are there any predictions or any things that you'd want to throw out to the audience about what they might anticipate, what they could see next?
Oh, gosh.
With 30 seconds.
I guess disruption, innovation. I think if you haven't started your journey of understanding, you might get left behind. That's definitely a view that we've got. You think of retail, supply chain, product price promotion, conversational retail. There's going to be a lot of innovation coming, so you want to get ahead of it.
That's tremendous advice. Just get started. right? Don't wait, just get started. Well, with that, I want to thank Steve and the Very Group for presenting a really compelling case of how you can bring data and advanced technologies to serve your customer and improve operations. And thank you all for joining us today.